breathing is something that we do without even thinking about it. That's because it's part of our body's autonomic nervous system. However, it turns out we really should be paying more attention to our breath than we realize. There is something called the mind-body-breath connection, and I am absolutely delighted to be talking with Adam Stanecki, who is the Breath Geek, and he is going to help us dive deep into learning how and why we should breathe different. Adam, thank you so much for joining me.
Hello from across the pond, Mira. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I am so delighted that you are here. And of course, I'm also really excited that we're talking about this topic because so many of us don't realize just how much how we breathe impacts the rest of our body. And I know you're going to educate us because you and I have talked before.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. And exactly as you said in that little intro, it's part of the autonomic nervous system. Therefore, it's often out of consciousness. And that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing when everything's working well, and it's a curse when it's not. But it does open up the door to opportunity. And that's what I find really interesting. It's part of, if I would call it a mission, it's part of my mission to bring breathing back into consciousness. So I can help whomever's interested in attending to different aspects of health, wellness, and performance by attending to the breath. And the beautiful thing is we're all familiar with it. Maybe we lost connection a little bit.
That's really great. And I think it is something that we don't think about. And yet it is because we know the mechanics of how we breathe. I think if we learn how to pay attention, and I'm excited to learn more from you, but if we learn how to pay attention, that will help us begin to develop new, better, hopefully better breathing habits, as you say, as we learn to breathe different. Before we dive into that, I would love to hear how you became the Breath Geek.
Yes, it is a long tale, and I shan't be too verbose about it. Basically, as a child, I had severe asthma, and I was very intimately connected with my breath because it wasn't going very well. It really wasn't. I was hospitalized. I think my mum was so very stressed out about it for most of my single-digit years, and I wasn't ever. It's really interesting thinking back about it, Mira. No one talked to me about breathing. Like I had let's call it a dysfunction or a disorder. I don't even know, a challenge. I loathe to call asthma a disease, and I feel labeling it as such makes it a little bit bigger than it is. And now it's important, but labels. Let's move on. I didn't get taught about breathing. So I actually taught myself how to breathe as a child. And a young teenager. And I didn't know that's what I was doing, because what my experience was like someone was sitting on my chest, which is really funny because breathing into the chest is absolutely non-optimal anyway. But my mode of breathing was chest breathing. So I taught myself, or I remembered myself, to breathe with my diaphragm, to breathe deeply. And that was often enough to be okay. I didn't ever really get beyond the symptoms, but I didn't get quite as breathless, didn't get quite as puffed out. So I did all that as a young teen child, and then completely forgot all about it.
And
became
so what
unconscious
happened
again.
to your asthma when that happened? Were you still breathing in a way to support your body, or you lost track of that as well?
No, so my asthma basically stayed where it was, which meant I wasn't having asthma attacks, but I also would return into the asthma symptoms after maybe getting a virus or a head cold. But again, it was out of consciousness, and I had so many things to do as a young adult that I just dealt with it in other ways. Now, my breathing was okay, but it wasn't optimal. And so I searched for other ways to manage it. I studied Chinese medicine, and I became a gym owner. So that all helped, that all contributed, but it wasn't focused on breathing. And so all these different things, martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, all of these things have breathing in them. But again, it was part of my process of getting better, of healing, but it wasn't top of mind.
Mm.
It wasn't top of mind. So then I moved through being a gym owner and a mentor for people. I moved into psychotherapy and mentoring and coaching. And then the blip happened, and it allowed me the time just to stop and question how I really help people. And I looked back at all of the work I'd done in health and wellness. And that's when I had that blinding flash of the obvious, which was when people come to you for therapy or for mentoring, you start everything with breathing to calm them down. What's that all about? So I had this beautiful period of time in an uncertain time in society, in the world, to sit and investigate that more deeply. And I made the decision to make it very obvious that's what I do, to not call it something else, to call it breath focus, to call it breath coaching, to call it breath practice, whatever, but just to speak about the breath. So it's really obvious. And if there's someone who wants to dive into that with me, then I'm here and I'm available.
That's really wonderful. And I love how you went on this journey yourself. And I have to believe that that allows you to be more patient and more supportive for those people who perhaps have been on a breathing journey of their own, because so many of us go through different phases. We focus on different things at different times in our life. And learning to breathe is not something that we are taught anywhere, unless, as you say, you go, even if you go to a yoga class or some sort of physical fitness, they may say, oh, you want to, don't breathe up here, breathe down here. But they don't say, this is how we're going to build a practice where you just do this, you connect with your body. So how do you help someone learn how to make that shift?
The first thing for everyone is building awareness of the actual activity of breathing. So the first thing I say to everyone is close your mouth. Or if I'm trying to be a little bit naughty, I'll say shut your mouth. And which is a great one if I'm working with school teachers, because I always joke with them and I say, well, I've always wanted to say this to my school teachers, so I'm saying it to you now. But that's the first thing. And there's a whole bunch of benefits that come with nose breathing rather than mouth breathing. And any of your listeners and viewers can look that up really quickly, but we're talking about filtering, moistening, warming, slowing down the air, basically preparing it for the lungs so the lungs don't get shocked. And it allows respiration, the exchange of gases in the respiratory gases in the body, to happen as smoothly as possible, let's say. So that's number one. And when that happens, the body actually starts to calm down, because if you think about it, when you're calm, you're more likely to breathe gently through your nose than if you're panicked or if you're frightened, which is normally a fast, often a mouth breath as well. I always say, if you're getting chased by a bear, it doesn't matter how you breathe. It matters how fast you're running.
Yeah.
Let's worry about the breathing later and count our fingers and toes and arms and legs and hopefully continue. So there are times when you will breathe in ways that not necessarily optimal for ongoing wellness, but they're optimal for performance and survival. But they're the anomalies. And the problem becomes getting stuck in that mode of breathing. And stressed people, overwhelmed people, even asthmatics get stuck in that cycle. And it's like being stuck in the fight-flight mechanism of the nervous system. And you mentioned the autonomic nervous system earlier. So the first thing is just closing the mouth. Now, what that does is that automatically makes most people have to concentrate a little bit on their breathing, because it's changing something. Even people who will tell me, oh, I don't breathe through my mouth, I'll say, okay, close your mouth. Just gently put your lips together. And then that might be easy for someone sitting at a desk. Okay, go for a walk. Do the same thing. Walk up a hill.
So I have a question. So many of the breathing exercises that we're taught, whether it's for a meditative practice or for some other reason, we're told in through the nose, out
through the mouth.
Yes. Should we be breathing in and out through our nose?
Oh, it depends. So my answer to this is, all things being equal, shut your mouth. And there are times, as I said before, when opening your mouth and breathing through your mouth may form part of a practice. So there are different pranayama techniques that will ask you to breathe through your mouth, but it's for a very specific reason. And I often don't get into the detail of that until someone has managed to get their normal breathing back, which is close your mouth and breathe through your nose, because most of the time that's when you need to breathe through your nose. Most of the time, breathe through your nose. And then you could say, but what if I'm swimming? Breathe through your mouth when you're swimming, because if you don't, you're going to just suck a whole bunch of water in through your nose, and that's not healthy. So there are exceptions to the rule, but the rule is, such as it is, breathe through your nose. And what's interesting is you can find that the times when you have been resorting to breathing through the mouth, you can continue to breathe through the nose. And that's what most people find very interesting is, I can actually run with my mouth closed. I can execute a level of physical activity that I thought required an excessive amount of breathing. I don't need to breathe that excessively. And so let me speak about asthmatics for a moment. Often with asthmatics breathe too much. And by what I mean by too much is in excess of metabolic requirements. Don't actually need to breathe that much, but there's the sense that in the body that one feels breathless. So when you feel like you're breathless, you breathe more.
Right.
So what we do with asthmatics is we effectively reset that desire to breathe too much. So we normalize the breathing. The same is true for a lot of other people as well, that they're breathing in excess of metabolic requirements but don't realize it. So doing something like walking up a hill with the mouth closed and realizing you can get to the top of the hill without opening your mouth, that's an interesting realization, because you realize you didn't have to breathe through your mouth. You only did it because it felt better, but it's not optimal in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness of your breathing.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So then you start to peel back layers of the onion then. And so back to your original question, like where do you start? You close the mouth and you start to investigate what happens. When do I get the sensation that I need to open my mouth? Does my body feel different now that I'm breathing through the nose? And you can get more and more focused on it. So what starts to happen, if you want to, you can have a practice where you can just sit down for 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes and just be the witness of the air going in and out of your nose. Where does it go in my body? What do I feel? Is my circulation changing? Do I feel calm? Do I feel a little bit panicked? Am I uneasy? Am I okay with it? And you start to understand what's happening while I'm breathing during the day.
And
so
this
you become...
Yeah, I was sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say this
Not at all.
leads me to wonder, like, I know, so I had reached out to you to talk to you after my Healthy Readers book club read Breath by James. And and I was astonished to realize that I was mouth breathing more than I knew I was, and to try to work on changing that. But I'm curious, do you have any idea, and it's okay if you don't, what percentage of us just breathe through the mouth? Because nobody has ever talked to us about how to properly breathe to support the body.
Yes, I know of 2 studies, and the difficulty with both studies is what the definition of mouth breathing was. Did it mean breathing through the mouth solely or breathing through the mouth sometimes? So I can't answer that part. So to my mind, I would make the assumption that it's breathing through the mouth some of the time. Maybe all of the time is the categorization of a mouth breather.
Sure.
And the 2, one was mid-teens in terms of a percentage of adults who breathe through the mouth. So less than 1 in 5, but pretty close to 1 in 5.
Wow.
And the other one was low 20s. So I just do the average in my head and I think 1 in 5.
Okay.
And then it becomes an interesting activity of walking around and having a look at people. So I do this because I do geek out on it. I'm a little bit voyeuristic about this thing. And it's for educational and scientific purposes that I watch people. So if I'm in a room of 20 people, I will look around for the 4 people that are mouth breathing. But it's not unusual to look around and everyone's got their mouth closed. Because I have found that it's very rare to find someone who mouth breathes all the time.
Okay.
That's my experience. Now, I'm sure there are people who do mouth breathe all the time, but I have found that not to be the case in my observation. And again, this is purely my observation. But that said, I think there are more than 1 in 5 people who breathe through the mouth some of the time.
Okay.
And individually, what becomes interesting is, what if you don't know when you're doing that?
It's so interesting that you should say that, because as I was reading the book, I found myself catching myself sometimes
Yes.
in certain activities going, oh, wait, I'm breathing with my mouth. That actually brings up another interesting question. How do you feel about mouth taping? That's a little.
I feel great about it. I think it's one of the cheapest and most effective ways of improving one's breath.
So I
Simple as
have
that.
to say, as someone who has discovered that they sometimes mouth breathe, it is, I could be okay with taping during the day. There's a part of me that's a little nervous about taping at night while I'm sleeping. That just feels mentally uncomfortable.
Exactly. And so most things with breathing are not physiological, they're psychological. Most of the discomfort is psychological. So if you were to, look, number one, I think everyone should tape their mouth at night for about 90 days to create a reset.
Wow.
Now, of course, when I say everyone, there are outliers, there are caveats, there are people that shouldn't do it for certain reasons, medical and otherwise. If you're listening or watching, do talk to someone who can help you with all of that. That's very important that you're safe. But let's say you can, and therefore Adam says you should. Instead of just trying to tape your mouth shut like you're being kidnapped, you just get a little piece of paper tape about the width of your finger and you put it down the middle here. And the idea is it's as if someone's gently closing your lips. And you'll find that there's actually a little bit of room in the corner of your mouth that you could take a breath through your mouth if you wanted to. So psychologically, that's a little bit more comforting. Now, and this is important because if it stresses you out, it doesn't help. We don't want any breathing exercise to be that stressful that it's detrimental. Second thing, tape your mouth during the day for an hour, walk around the house, walk around wherever. And it's almost proving to your own mind that you're okay with it. Now, for most people, that's enough. Like the number of people I've talked to said, no, I'm not doing it. I just can't get around it. I can't get my head around it. And that's exactly right. You can't get your head around it. So we need to get your head around it. Do it during the day. There was recently, I can't remember the lady's name. I'm so sorry. She's the #1 tennis player in the world. I'm not interested in tennis, so I don't know her name. And the rankings probably change every 3 minutes anyway. She recently trained with tape on her lips. Now, she did it, what she was trying to explain, the reason that she did it didn't make any sense to me, but that could have been the reporting. It's an article in the Washington Post, which used to be wonderful. And it's not the greatest article, but it's interesting that there is coverage of this article. So, and I do apologize that I don't know her name.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah. So it can be done. There was a 72-year-old man recently ran a marathon with his mouth taped shut the whole way. Basically just to prove that it can be done. Now, he didn't set the world on fire with his time, but that wasn't the point of the activity. The point was to prove it could be done, and he did. And what's interesting about these people that are taping their mouths shut, they actually recover faster because they breathe functionally the whole time in the exercise. So I just want to get back to the idea of taping one's mouth at night. There is a product, and I have no interest in this financially, so when I mention it, it's called MyoTape, MyoTape. And what it does is it creates it surrounds the lips and it's elasticized and it just gently pushes the lips together, but it never covers the mouth.
Okay.
So that's an option. It's not an option for me because I've got a beard and a mustache, so it doesn't work.
Right.
But anyone who's cleanly shaven or female without a beard can use that. So there's an option. And again, it works really well psychologically. We often use that for children, of course, because we never tape children's mouths at night because that's just a little bit out there. It's a bit much. We're not trying to cause any damage. But I have found most adults can quite easily tape their mouth at night. And again, if you're not sure, do it during the day. And if it's not for you, look into MyoTape. And if you don't want to do it, that's your choice. But let's assume you sleep 8 hours a night. You get 1/3 of your day beautiful nasal functional breathing for free.
Mm.
So it's wonderful. You don't have to think about it. And for most people, it takes about 90 days and it resets it and you can not wear the tape. Now, for most of my clients, they just continue to wear the tape because it's actually something that becomes comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Know that they're going to sleep well because they know that their mouth's going to be shut. They're not going to wake with a dry mouth. They're going to get into a deep phase of sleep. A small noise isn't going to wake them up. They won't need to wake to go to the bathroom.
Mm.
Because that only happens when you're not in a deep sleep. You don't register those signals when you're sleeping deeply.
Because your hormonal pathways are very different when your brain is in true rest.
So you're not picking up on those signals. You're deep in it, which is beautiful. Yeah. And a lot of people don't sleep deeply because they're breathing in a way that doesn't allow them that depth of sleep. Now, so to my mind, if a little piece of tape on your lips can help you so much, and all that is stopping you doing it is your sense of comfort, work out how to get comfortable with that uncomfortable thing. Because as I say, my clients, after a little while, they're like, it's more comfortable to have my mouth taped at night than to not, because I know I'll sleep well.
And I love that you've shared a couple of ideas, like aside from the mouth taping, you can simply set a timer for 15 or 20 minutes and sit there and concentrate on the breath, or developing that awareness of when you are mouth breathing. Like, those are concrete things that we can do, which is
absolutely,
I think, a fabulous thing, because there are so many benefits to making sure that we are breathing well, as you say, breathing differently so that we can support the body. I guess one of the questions that I also have for you is, how old do you recommend starting to specifically teach children about how to breathe? Because as adult, like, we're all adults who have gotten to this point because nobody ever talked to us about it. You don't want to stress out a little kiddo by going, close your mouth, breathe through your nose. But at what point do you get to a point where you can say to them, hey, let's focus on learning how to breathe so that when you're an adult, you don't have to think about it?
Yeah, so it's a beautiful question. I wish I could have had my time with my children again, because the answer is as soon as they came out. Newborns.
Really? Even as babies?
As soon as babies. Now, if you think about what you could do gently, of course, you're not going to be having a conversation with them. But if they're sleeping and their mouth's open, you can gently close the mouth. And you can, it's almost like a gentle recommendation that this is the right way. And babies love touch. It's one of the languages that they have when they, so just a little touch on the lips to close the lips when they're, if you notice that they're breathing through the mouth, closing the mouth. Now, if they have nasal congestion and they can't do that, and you're aware of it as the parent, then you can attend to that.
Yeah.
What mechanisms are required? Now, of course, if you've got a newborn baby, you're not teaching them a breathing exercise, but you're looking into other avenues to remove that nasal congestion or to treat that nasal congestion or whatever the case may be. So you can start straight away.
Wow.
And then as the parent, you become more mindful of what's happening for your child. Now, they learn this by doing. So they develop the habit of breathing through the nose. And then as they get older and they learn language, then we can bring language in. Now, of course, it's like with all teaching, don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive. So, and there are ways you can do that. Like in some Asian cultures, there is the practice of meditation for children. And they're 4, 5, and 6 learning how to meditate. Now, there's no reason that children all over the world can't do that.
Sure.
Because if nothing more, of course, we were talking earlier, mind-body connection, breathing, perfect example. Now, the reason may be to teach calm mind activities. But the first thing that they do is sit still and breathe, and then the mind calms down. And
hopefully breathing with their mouth closed.
For the most part, they are. Now, again, of course, if they're learning an interesting yogic or other tradition, there might be some mouth breathing involved, but it's for purpose. It's purposeful breathing.
It just occurred to me now, I don't think it's ever breathing in through the mouth, regardless of whatever meditative practice I've studied, it's always out through the mouth. So
Most of the time. There are a few techniques that do inhale through the mouth, but again, very specific reasons.
yeah.
And if anyone comes to me and they're asking about different things, if there's any form of like breathing dysfunction or other dysfunction that is contributed to by breathing, then you're not breathing through the mouth. We're sorting everything else out first. We're getting a baseline, and then we'll investigate these other breathing mechanisms and see if they're appropriate for you. I think a lot of information is now available. All of the exercises I teach, you can go to my YouTube channel and you can see the exercises. And I'm happy for people to have those. I'm not the only person who shares them. They're no secret.
Yeah.
And the question then becomes, you've got so much information, what do you do for yourself? What's appropriate? That's when you need someone. If you get to that point where you're like, okay, I really want to deeply investigate what's right for me, you need to see an expert, because this stuff is fundamental yet powerful. If you get your breathing wrong, you can get a lot of things wrong. So there are a lot of people doing transformational breath work, Wim Hof method, stronger forms of pranayama, holotropic breath work, rebirthing breath work. They're all wonderful. And yet if they're applied incorrectly, you can actually cause psychological distress with them. And that's just breathing. So it's more powerful than people understand, much more powerful. And it's important that, even though you think it's a simple thing, it's layered. It's sometimes quite subtle. So you have to be careful with it.
That is so fascinating. And you have shared an incredible amount of information with us. Thank you so much. I really am deeply grateful. And so you have convinced me, and I take bar class. And so I am committed. The next time I go to bar, I'm going to try and keep my mouth closed for the entire session and see how it goes when I work out there.
Excellent.
So I really want to thank you so much for being a guest here and sharing your wisdom with us. If someone wanted to connect with you and learn more, I know you mentioned your YouTube channel, and I'll certainly put that link down below. Is there a website or any other way that they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the YouTube channel is actually called Breathe with Adam. So anyone can go to, there's like 200 videos on there at the moment, and it's always growing. I publish new content every week. If you can spell my name, you can find me online. So it's Adam Stanecki, and my surname is Stanecki. And if you type that in and put a .com on the end, you'll get to my website, adamstanecki.com. You can type in breathgeek.com at the moment. That redirects to me as well. So
That sounds
and I'd be
great.
happy to have a conversation with anyone about this
Yeah,
stuff.
no,
I love talking about breathing.
that's great. And I will make sure to put those links down below. Adam, thank you so much. I really appreciate your information and your sharing. I think this was really fascinating. For everybody else who's listening, I will put all the links down below. And I am also going to look up those two athletes that Adam mentioned, and see if I can find an unpaid version of those articles that I can share as well. I think that's quite an inspirational thing to aim for. And I just want to thank you again for being here. Thank everybody for watching. And remember, in everything we do, make today a healthy day. Bye, folks.